Ellie. I'm Chris King.
Alexander Boyd.
Today we're having our Music 2015 preview, so we're just going to break down on a monthly basis the albums that are coming out.
Yeah, so a lot of these dates may change due to, this is really early in the year, so things could get delayed, postponed, even scrapped altogether. These are dates we have so far, and these are actually the albums and musicians that we looked into today, and we actually care about and want to see coming up, but there's still more to come.
Yeah, exactly. So it is January. We're going to start with that. Today is, at the time of filming, is January 20th. Particularly, we're doing it now just because of the fact that there's very little albums actually came out within this month itself. But two of them that stand out, one for me, one for you, particularly, Marilyn Manson's new album came out.
Yeah, so The Pale Emperor came out. He did make a deluxe edition with 3 other songs, 3 acoustic ones. So my thoughts on The Pale Emperor. I am a Manson fan. I have listened to Marilyn Manson from his first album, even heard those demos from Spooky Kids and stuff. And I listened to all his EPs, the Weird Strange remix album. And so I'm a pretty big Manson fan. The Pale Emperor doesn't really resonate with me. I actually am one of the few people who did like Born Villain. But this album took quite a turn, and it feels less Manson to me. It feels a little more like influenced by 70s classic rock and stuff. So it was very slow. Like you could tell these songs fit in on Sons of Anarchy and stuff like that. So it didn't hit me hard. The more I listen to it, it gets better. So I can actually walk to this music, and it has a nice flow to it. But it's not that Manson punch that I missed. I am still one of those people who, it was my first album, Antichrist Superstar. So it was a rough album. And also my second favorite album is actually The Golden Age of Grotesque, which is also very slow, but I still feel that Manson,
flair.
Yeah, it's just something, I just keep wanting to say rough, because it is that kind of like
that edge.
Grinding metal type of thing for me. So those are my thoughts on Marilyn Manson.
Yeah, pretty interesting that that album didn't pan out because he's still, whether you like him or not, he's an icon when it comes to rock and metal and goth and everything, industrial everything. Like he's one of like the grandfathers of that whole kind of subgenre that just kind of split out. So it sucks that it didn't pan out. Maybe on his next EP or something he'll kind of figure something out that he wants to do. But also today they released simultaneously Tetsuo and Youth by Lupe Fiasco. I've only caught like maybe 3 singles off of it so far. But what was most interesting, I mean, again, like same as how you're a really massive Manson fan, I'm a massive Lupe Fiasco fan since Food and Liquor 1, I think that he was really, you can't like look at hip hop today and not acknowledge that between him, Kanye, Pharrell, they really inspired what today's hip hop artists are doing. Because today is very different. It's much more like political and it's emotional and stuff like that. But in those kind of days, it was much simpler. Like Kick Push, it was about skateboarding. It was about what kind of jewelry you're wearing and all that kind of stuff. It was hip hop, like at least in this kind of era. So he was one of those guys as well that really pushed it kind of forward for me. And he's one of the best rappers just in period, just in general. But lately, he also his kind of flavor has also really changed. It's also very political. It's very it has a message. All of his kind of tracks have a message about some kind of thing, especially like when it has to do with more like poverty kind of ridden areas and like Chicago and all that kind of stuff. So he talks about that kind of stuff. But Tetsuo and Youth is a little bit more kind of going back to his roots. It has a lot of hip hop kind of undertones. But the weird thing is that some of the tracks were omitted. I was really excited about this album because actually last year he had a Tetsuo and Youth preview tour. And I've never seen anything like that. Like someone a year prior, like these are some of the tracks that are going to be on it and we're going to preview them to the audience. And he did that and I really wanted to go, but I heard last minute about it. But watching some of the videos and stuff, he shows off a lot of tracks that were so good. Almost like dancey in a way. Kind of electronic hip hop, and usually it doesn't work for me, but when he does it, it's really good. But they're not on the album, so I mean, it could be that he's gonna release a limited edition maybe later on. There's like one song with Chris Brown called "Crack" that I really like, so it's not on it. But I'll have a review about this album hopefully within this week or next week. But moving on, this is January still. Not too many albums that really kind of stand out. Pop Roach is still making music. Apparently, they have an album coming out on the 27th. February.
I have February.
You have February. You have some albums for February.
Well, I just have one album for February. This is not a very well-known artist. His name is Life Cry. So he has 2 albums already and an EP and a single. And all these things are actually really good. I like his music back then, but you can see the progression.
Right.
This new album is called If I Don't Wake Up. And he hasn't announced the release date. He just keeps saying early 2015. He's been saying this since fall of last year. And looking around for it, I saw on Amazon there is a date for it. And also there's another place, one of the popular like industrial record labels, they also have one. I think it was Death Wish, which is in Asia. And it's February 10th. So this album, what we heard, the only EP he has and the single that he has, which is I'm Sick and Beating Up Disaster, are really good. So he also released a song called Crippled onto his SoundCloud, and that was amazing. So from what I've heard, I really like it. I'm really looking forward to this. Like, I'm just happy for his progression. You could feel a little more 9 Inch Nails influences, and so that kind of stuff. I'm not a big fan of Agrotech, so that's why his first 2 albums weren't that big of a hit. So this one, he's actually using more of his voice rather than that just overly synthesized voice. So I'm happy for that. I'm excited.
Okay. Yeah. Good. Good. That one's February 10th, right?
Yes.
Okay. So yeah, that's kind of pretty early in February. We consider, music season is between January till April. Mm-hmm. January 1st to April 31st. So yeah, I mean, there's a lot of albums that are going to start pouring out in February. Bob Dylan has an album coming out.
Wow.
Yeah, he's still making music.
Wow.
Ricky Martin has he's also still making music.
I didn't know that. For Bob Dylan, I still hope that he makes a book. He's just massive with his lyrics. Just just put out like poetry or something, whatever he wants to do.
This is kind of strange to me because I think Raekwon from Wu-Tang Clan has an album coming out later in the year, which we'll get to. But Ghostface Killah has an album coming out February 17th. So it's kind of weird that it seems like they're kind of doing their own thing right now. Maybe Wu-Tang is not planning. They released about 10 albums. So interesting. Maybe they're doing some kind of solo work here. But the one that kind of sounds to me, February 17th, Imagine Dragons, Smoke and Mirrors. And the reason why is because I didn't expect to like Imagine Dragons. Especially because when Radioactive came out last year, right, or 2013, I can't remember. It came out, and I can't remember the album name. I'm not sure why. I think it's Dreams or something like that. It was a really good song, but it felt way too radio for me, right? But when I actually downloaded the album, or I think it's called Demons, I can't remember. But I downloaded the album, and I found it's something with a D. 10 tracks, and 8 of those tracks are really good. Like I said, Radioactive, Demons, Amsterdam. I don't know. There's a lot, but it surprised me how good their album is. Because again, I'm not one for jumping on bandwagons really, and and I know they put out this is the 3rd album really, but it seems like they just kind of debuted, because this is the one that actually was more radio that caught on. So I mean, I hate to say it because I'm not a big fan of radio, but if this next album is just an improvement on this prior album, I'm okay with that. Mm-hmm. So if they get that song plays every 10 minutes. Last year, I'm okay with that as long as the quality still holds and you add a little bit more of that kind of flair, that kind of rock anthem music that they make. I'm okay with that, so I'm looking forward to that. That'll be February 17th. Other than that, not a lot. Kid Rock also putting out. So a lot of guys from the 90s they're putting out albums this year.
Somebody who came out recently that made a new album, and that's re-sparking this whole 90s thing. I think it was Filter. I think the band was. I'm not a fan. Or Cold Chamber.
Yeah, I don't know.
Some of these old bands.
I think I don't know. I think Pearl Jam had an album last year or something. I don't know. Sure, but continue on. Modest Mouse in March also an album. They're a really good band.
I miss Modest Mouse.
Yeah, Madonna from the 80s. They're getting older now. She has an album coming out in March. We're not going to review that. Death Cab for Cutie. Also an album in March 31st. Cool. Ludacris has an album in March that he wears. I haven't been a Ludacris fan pretty much ever.
Yeah, was anybody ever a Ludacris fan?
I'm not really sure. I think his friends, maybe. And I'm not trying to bash it, but I'm just being honest. I think he's really good as a featured rapper on other songs. I think like he same as kind of like Flo Rida. I don't like his single solo work. Like his album is called Ludaversal. I can't take myself seriously and listen to an album called Ludaversal. So that's my problem with it. It's really, I don't know. It's so like pop, radio, hip hop stuff. So it's weird. I can't really deal with it. So I mean, I don't know. We'll check it out. You know, it could be good. But seeing as everything he's been doing lately, not really sure. I think his feature in Fast and Furious is probably the best work. I think as an actor, yeah, right.
Crash.
So I think actually he's not really a great actor, but I think his acting is better than a lot of his music sometimes.
Yeah, but I think he has to make music for people to feature him because, like you said, he is good. He's fast.
Well, and he's riding that wave, right? Because Fast and Furious comes out, I think, in March or April, right? So you have an album coming out, and you're going to be in that movie. It's just
April.
That much, April. So that much more publicity, and that album will sell, and it'll make a lot of money. Wale has an album also. I remember when he debuted, like in, I don't know, 11. I was like, this guy is going to get big, but he kind of fell off.
I don't know who that is.
Yeah, it's this rapper. He made like a couple good songs. It's kind of interesting. This says Bjork. I'm wondering that's.
I don't even know the last Bjork album.
Bjork and John? Peter. It's like Peter Bjork and.
You think it's something else?
Yeah,
right.
Think something else. But like the way it's
she's
written.
Her own.
Yeah. Okay. So I figured I thought they were a group together.
Yeah, I remember what you're talking about though. That's another band altogether.
Yeah. So Bjork and John, I think, I don't know, can't remember. But also in this month, Kelly Clarkson and Snoop Dogg both have albums coming out. We're just running out of these names. We're not actually going to review these albums, but it's kind of strange again to see a lot of '90s artists. They're putting out albums within February and March. A lot of them. Now we're in April, which is actually the end of music season for us. Do you have any albums for April?
Nope, everything is CBA.
Okay, so that's it. At least for April, there's nothing really there. May, Def Leppard has an album.
Oh wow!
So yeah, they're an island. I didn't know that they're signed on with Island.
Cool.
Okay, but this is actually now the much more interesting part, the unscheduled and to be announced.
Yeah.
Do you have any that are unscheduled?
Okay, so right now there's a little known band, one of my top bands. It's a band called The Witch Was Right. Last year, the lead singer and now I think pretty much the sole member of the band, Trevor Friedrich, he released it pretty much on his own, all by himself. He worked on it on his own and, did a lot of work on this. And it was really good. I loved it. The first one was called The Red Horse. It was amazing. I saw from the first ever show, and every time he hit LA, I went. Of course, I had to. So now he actually announced that he's making a new album called The Stone. That is also to be announced. He had a date, and I think he was going to release the album along with the free show, because he has a free show like every first time. And he pushed it back. He said he's just waiting for guest vocals, I guess, to fill in the album. He said it's 90% done. So I'm actually really excited about that. This is a brand new band. Only one album dropped. This is going to be the second one. So I'm super excited. So we could join my TBA list?
Yeah, go down yours.
Okay. So then from there, we do have another band. Again, another LA local. This band, though, they were prepared. They were prepared. It's called Three Teeth. Three Teeth released an album last year called Three Teeth, just an eponymous album. And this thing was massive. This thing was true industrial, because now everybody's calling everything industrial. Everything has that label. This, like, if you listen to this, you're like, yes, this comes from like a Skinny Puppy feel, Ministry feel, like just old school industrial stuff mixed in with new. Very political. They are super political. They want you to open your eyes and actually notice everything. And they're actually working on an album. It's just they've been showing little clips of stuff, just showing off him recording and stuff. They showed a small clip of a new song. I'm assuming it's called Sell Your Face. Really cool stuff. Still that same feel. Like I said, they were prepared. Like they came out and they started just rolling out everything, just bunch of cool images, and then, guys, we're going on tour. Bam! And then they started touring, and they just popped up everywhere. I started seeing them in all the shows that I went to. I went to Industrial Strength, they were there. I went just anywhere in the LA scene, they were there.
They're working.
And they already went to other places. They even left the United States. Like, they played everywhere now. And so this band is going up. This thing is flying. Then, from there, the last thing is Aesthetic Perfection. If any of you guys know Aesthetic Perfection, back then, before Close to Human came out, he had a couple of demo songs that just didn't make it into the album. And then he had his crash. He had the whole, his hard drive just crashed, and all his music was lost. So now he's been asking people on Facebook to send him, if anybody ripped any of the music, like to send it to him so he could rework it. So think about that. An artist growing, because he made albums, plenty of albums since, a band growing and actually having this knowledge and just being able to do what he can do now, and going back and touching up his first songs, I think that's genius. Yeah. I think that's really cool. So I'm looking forward to this. I think this is going to be fun. For the least, it's going to be fun. And I'm just hoping he makes a new album as well. Probably this would be like a secondary thing, like probably an EP, because the demos were just about 6 songs, if I remember. So that's it for my...
Yeah, that'd be really cool. I love that idea. I know very few artists that have done something like that. But yeah, that's a really good idea. So with Unscheduled and to be announced, there's several, but there's only a few that I really, really want to get into. Some interesting ones is this 50 Cent. He has another album coming out. He hasn't put out good music since the 2000s. I mean, yeah.
Been working on headphones.
Yeah, I think he's just better as a businessman than an actual artist. Akon, interesting because I mean, Akon is not just one of the best artists that push like hip hop and R&B coming forward. Mm-hmm. He was really good as like a feature artist, as a producer, all that kind of stuff. I loved having Akon like on featured tracks and stuff because he just adds that like some of the best R&B kind of song, right? But he fell off, you know, like for I don't know, it must be like 10 years. I can actually, I'm not really 10 years, but you know, at least like I don't know 5 years that I can remember him actually being on the radio, you know. So it's kind of weird, but he has an album that's coming out, so I don't know, could be good. Black Sabbath has an album coming out.
Wow.
This is the first one that is really I'm so excited for, so hyped for. Brandon Flowers has his new solo album. Interesting right here in the genre, it says indie rock and new wave. So I think it's going to be much more synth heavy than Flamingo was, much more electronic heavy than Flamingo was, it sounded very kind of Killers-ish.
Yeah, Flamingo was very, I still feel that Sam's Town feel on Flamingo.
Yeah, it sounded very like they could have performed it like at a live Las Vegas show or something like that. But we don't have a title yet for this album, but we've been massive Killers fans since the beginning. So I mean, the most exciting thing about this though is that again, there's the fact that it's a 2015 release, and allegedly there's going to be a tour as well because they've done a tour for every album, you know, including Flamingo. So if that's the case, I'm definitely going to try my best to go there and just see it. Hopefully the album is good though, because Flamingo, as much a fan of Brandon Flowers and the Killers I am, Flamingo wasn't that good. It had a few tracks that were decent, but it didn't compete with any of the Killers albums.
Crossfire still comes to mind every once in a while.
Yeah, Crossfire, yeah. There's another one as well, I can't remember the name, but it's pretty good. Coldplay has an album coming out. We actually reviewed, I forget the last name, their album, the last name, because it's forgettable. Artists stop making forgettable music. We actually reviewed that album on Instagram. It was right before we started posting videos.
Yeah.
It wasn't that good. They also are moving very heavy, like new wave, electronic, you know, kind of sounds. And the best thing about Coldplay is that they're some of the best musicians in the business. You know, like they're a wide range of instruments that they can use. They have some of the best like band members just in the industry. Yet they're going kind of electronic and very kind of, I don't know, production heavy. And that's what really took me out of it. It didn't sound like a Coldplay album.
Yeah.
So this one's called A Head Full of Dreams. I'll probably review it.
Still sounds like Coldplay.
Yeah, it sounds very Coldplay, but as long as it goes back to the basics, go back to instruments and yeah, I don't know, just kind of the best thing about Coldplay for me has always been like it kind of transports you to another world, So I mean, hopefully it goes back to that kind of thing. Next one that really stands out for me, Drake, Views from the Six. I'm sure that's a reference to probably something in Atlanta or something like that. He always does references to that. So Drake, I mean, I've been a big fan of it since the beginning, since his first mixtape and stuff like that, before he actually came out on the scene and signed on with Young Money. But since then, he just produced a lot of radio-heavy music.
Yep.
I can't really take it anymore. Every now and then he'll have like one good song, but one good song off an album, like maybe one, maybe two. I get a lot of slack from that, especially from people I know like in school and that kind of stuff, because I understand that there's a lot of fans from Drake. No one's doubting that. The guy has probably the widest net in hip hop and R&B, But the problem is that, again, his music, it lacks any emotion, it lacks any narrative, it lacks any purpose. It's just there. It's just music, So it sounds very recycled. A lot of his music is very recycled to me. So I'm hoping, again, that Drake puts out an album that is a statement, that it kind of really does another shake-up for himself, because I think he needs it. It'll probably sell millions, so either way.
Yeah, well, he actually got a big following now.
Yeah, he has such a big following, but we'll see what he does with that album. Another guy who's also kind of fell off, Kid Cudi.
Oh yes,
Man on the Moon 3. I've listened to all his albums. He was founded by Kanye. He was supposed to be like his protege or something like that. And when he first came on the scene with like Day and Night and all that kind of stuff, yes, everyone went crazy for it. Yep. It was decent. He put out. I think he, again, another guy who's better as a featured artist rather than putting out solo work. I think that's a big problem in the music industry. Like you're as a featured artist, you're really good, but especially in hip hop, you put out a solo album and they just don't stick. And Kid Cudi doesn't have the same kind of following that like Drake has. So.
Something about Kid Cudi is that he is good. You can see talent. You can see
he's talented.
He thinks outside the box, but he doesn't have that punch. He doesn't have that big punch, because every time I listen to any of his music, it's very flowy. It's very flowy, which is nice because it all flows together. But because of that, it kind of just fades into the background, and you just don't pay attention to it.
I think that he would have been better if he would have just been like indie.
Oh, yes, I can see that.
I think like if you would say like, oh, listen to this guy, his name's Kid Cudi, to your friend, like who? That would be really cool to go and discover new music. But Kid Cudi has this big production behind him, and that I think that it's either someone is too many cooks in the kitchen with that, or he has too many resources that the music that he puts out is very, I don't know, for lack of a better term, it's just kind of, I don't know, not sellout, but like I said, I think if he was doing it by himself, like you said, he's really talented. But yeah, there's too much kind of pop in there for me. But we'll see. Man on the Moon 3, I don't know, it could go back to something kind of original and pretty cool. This one also interesting, Lana Del Rey. I wasn't going to mention her because I was really disappointed with Ultraviolence, but you mentioned, like, why don't you mention, because I know you're a fan. I'm a big fan of her. It has nothing to do with, like, gender or anything, but typically, even with guys now, I'm getting much more picky with music, but typically, we haven't reviewed much music from women, because typically they don't put out a lot of solo albums, besides, unless you're Beyonce or Rihanna, essentially, or Taylor Swift, I guess. So it's hard, because they put out maybe like 2 or 3 albums, compared to like when most males put out like 6 or something like that in a span of like 5 years. That's typically the problem with that. But Lana Del Rey actually is an artist, and not only that, the thing I really buy about her is her potential. I think she can be, I've always said this, I think she's Grammy worthy, but I think that she's not working with the right people. I think she needs to work with, I was hoping that when she was working with I think his name was Aykroyd from Black Keys, that they were going to put out like a rock kind of, I don't know, soulful album, but it turned out to be, I don't know, like some weird kind of moaning chamber pop kind of music, and it's really weird. I think she's better Born to Die music, hip hop, like trip hop, kind of like, I don't know, work with Gorillaz or something, I think that, but she is still Grammy worthy though, so we'll see what happens with that. and that's almost it. Except Muse
Oh yes.
has another album coming out. Did you listen to their last album?
I don't even know which one it was. I think the last one I had
I
was.
forget what it's called. It's the one with Madness on it.
Wow, I think you are behind one.
No, Madness still plays on the radio. It's the album that was Madness was in, but I can't remember the name. I'm looking it up now. But anyway, The Second Law.
Oh yeah, I haven't heard that. What's the one before that?
The Resistance.
That's the one I heard.
Yeah, that was 2009. Yeah, so Second Law, yeah, that has Madness and Survival. Those two songs that they kind of sounded to me. Another band that's going a little bit too electronic heavy for me. Much like Coldplay, I think that they suffer the same problem. We were gonna review it, but I don't remember what happened with that album. But again, actually no, sorry, we weren't going to do this. 2012. It just doesn't stick. Mm-hmm. So this one, doesn't have a name on it just yet. But if they can go back to their roots, Black Holes and Revelation, like all that kind of stuff, like that's the music we need from them. You know, because rock is dead. Mm-hmm. You know, it's been dead for a pretty good while. But those are the kind of guys that together, like this could be a year for a little bit of a resurgence. For you have Coldplay, you have Muse, you have Brandon Flowers. Like that's a lot of potential right there. You're just in that kind of hole alone. Other than that, that's kind of it.
Yeah, and this is really tough because a lot of times we state that we want bands to stick to their roots, but sometimes it doesn't work. Sometimes it does. Like for Marilyn Manson, I guess he's not sticking to his roots, but he is sticking to the roots. Mm-hmm. And this album didn't work for him. You know, him going back to that 70s era of the sound of music back then, the rock and roll era. It just doesn't work for me. So that's very interesting that I don't want him to stick to his roots. I want him to actually just progress. Yeah. Like I said, I did like the last album, Born Villain. And that one, I did feel the slowness from his past albums, but I also did feel that roughness, the grinding metal against each other. So it's pretty hard to actually state where we want music to go. But for sure, we need less poppy stuff because everything is starting to sound the same.
We're actually kind of right down the fence on, like, we might start reviewing like I remember, like, we had a meeting before, like how come you don't review Taylor Swift and Katy Perry? And it's right, it's not fair because we're kind of being very selective with it. We're kind of reviewing the albums because unlike games and music, we don't know in advance what albums are going to come out. Mm-hmm. You know, we have like maybe a few weeks before. Like a lot of these, the best albums are to be announced. You know, so that's the kind of main problem. But interesting, like with that, like Linkin Park, I reviewed that album last year.
Yes.
And that was also one of the things that I remember, like when they started, like with those first two albums, that was very rock, very punk. Mm-hmm. They progressed into like electronic. That's actually the one band that I can think of off the top of my head that I wanted to stay and that progressed because their last album was very punk and rock again.
Yeah, very hardcore.
And I didn't like it. It sounded very like, lack for a better term, half-assed, you know? Okay. So I actually liked that kind of new wave, alternative rock, electronic, whatever you want to call it. That's actually the genre I like Linkin Park best in. So that was one that took a step back because they went so far back in the roots. But I don't know. We'll see. Thankfully, there wasn't too many pop artist albums this year because they all came out last year.
Wait, you don't want to review Miley Cyrus?
Oh, God. Yeah, I don't know. Probably never. But we'll see. Look, you guys let us know what artist albums you want us to check out. It doesn't have to be any of these that we mentioned. It can be underground. It can be indie. It can be very big budget, whatever it is. But this is the one genre we actually do need help with. We want to know what you guys want us to review because, I guess, unlike games and music and movies, we have that information already beforehand. But music, we're much more flexible. Yeah. So if you bring up artists like, hey, check out this artist, we'll check them out. If they have at least like one album, maybe two or something, and if they have another one coming out, we're open to that.
Yeah, so, I'm usually very excited to find new bands.
Yeah, that's actually that's what we want, right? We want new music because music is getting very dry. You know, so.
Yeah, like I'm still a fan of Nine Inch Nails, stuff like that. Like I did listen to Hesitation Marks, which I wasn't too fond of. The new Combi Christ album, We Love You, that one took quite a turn. Obviously, it's their perfection, it took quite a turn. So it's pretty interesting to find new bands. Yeah. Like the big bands that I mentioned right now was The Witches' Right and Three Teeth, and that's brand new. That just came out last year.
I can't believe, sorry, one more album, I completely forgot that I did not mention, I don't know why, Kanye. Kanye has rumored albums come out this year, but we'll get into that later on.
What's a rumor? That's what.
Yeah, that's the problem with it. Well, I mean, we have it on pretty good sources of that it will come out this year, as well as like a tour and all that stuff. But we'll get into that later on when it does come out. But yeah, keep it. Just kind of stay aware for that kind of stuff. And again, let us know on Instagram, on Twitter, follow us at Goodbye Dudley, and let us know what artists you.